Are any NDP Liberal MPs going to meet with James Top? I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked because they are. Where did my link go? Oh, great. Now I don't have my link. Oh, no, I do have it. I'd be shocked because they are led by a man who is not just incompetent, not just corrupt. I am going to say dishonest, insincere, and a hypocrite that would make Hippocrates. I don't know who. I don't know who originated with the term hypocrite. I think I know where it comes from. A hypocrite of epic, monumental, and unfathomable proportions. Jagmeet Singh is the leader of the New Democrat Party. Jagmeet Singh, the man who has coalitioned, formed an unholy alliance of hell with the Liberals, with Justin Trudeau, a 2-time ethics breaching, 3 times ethics alleged violating, corrupt, immoral tyrant. The NDP, under the watch of Jagmeet Singh, have teamed up. The two, it's a minority government. They formed effectively a majority government to prop up the Liberals until 2025 instead of triggering an election now. We just had one in September, but they don't want to trigger an election now because Jagmeet Singh knows that his role of leader of the party is in great danger. There's arguments that he wants to delay the next election so that he can acquire his required 6 years of government service to qualify for pension. There's an argument there. We don't know. You never know intentions. You just know facts. That Jagmeet Singh, I believe, qualifies for pension shortly before the next federal election will be triggered because of the union between the NDP and the Liberals to prop them up until then. This guy, the one you're looking at right here, Jagmeet Singh, and their party, the NDP, have unified with the Liberals to prop them up to avoid triggering another election. He is supporting Justin Trudeau in office. And he tweets this, when was it? Yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. Gaslighting, dishonesty. Listen to this.
Over 10,000 days have passed since the people of Nishnawbe have had clean drinking water. Over 10,000 days without something that people count for normal in communities across this country. But for the people,
got to stop you there. Drinking water, not people count for normal across this country. Across a civilized world meaning a government that has the ability to provide this infrastructure, does it. Clean drinking water, he's talking about providing dental care as a right. Clean drinking water in a normal, responsible country is a right. 10,000 days. He's lamenting the fact that 10,000 days, certain communities, certain indigenous communities do not have clean drinking water, are still under water boil advisories.
They've not had clean drinking water for over 2 decades. This is a complete and abject failure of leadership. This government has to acknowledge that this failure must be remedied. This is a complete and abject failure of leadership.
It is a complete and abject failure of leadership that he chose to support, unify with, to keep in power for another 3 years. I mean, how much worse can it possibly get?
This government has to acknowledge that this failure must be remedied. So when will this government ensure that the people of Nishnawbe and all First people of this land have access to clean drinking water?
Here, you buffoons. Here, you buffoons. This guy is the one who's now propping up Justin Trudeau. You want to affect change, Jagmeet? You trigger an election and you let the people vote against the guy who promised clean drinking water to the indigenous communities in 2015, and 7 years later, there are still 35 communities that have boil water advisories in effect. They don't have clean drinking water. The problem may be complex. The problem may be political, but the problem's not that complex. In fact, the solutions are, one of 3 or a variation thereof. We can find hundreds of millions of dollars to finance and fund foreign wars, but we can't find hundreds of millions of dollars to provide clean drinking water to First Nations, Indigenous peoples in Canada. Oh, and then you feign outrage. He feigns the outrage. Remove. He feigns the outrage of this incompetent government that he has now vowed to support. Oh, but his argument is going to be, I'm doing my best. I'm holding their feet to the fire. No, you're not. You're supporting them. You are supporting them. You are now the incompetent government that is responsible for the indigenous not having clean drinking water. You get out there and you virtue signal like an absolute, can't finish the sentence. Drives his BMW, has more designer bikes than than a normal person should have, quoting from an actual article. Took his third pay raise, his third salary increase during this pandemic. Comes out there, it's an incompetent, corrupt government. They've rigged the system against you. Well, you know what? Huey Long, not that I agree with everything he said. I'm just now listening to his biography. Not that I agree with everything Huey Long said, but he walked the walk and he talked the talk. He didn't just talk the talk and behind closed doors buy designer suits and line his own pockets. Jagmeet Singh talks the talk and then behind closed doors goes and pats the very same corrupt and unethical government on the back and props them up, cleans their feet. Oh, yeah. He's a man of the people. A man of the people. We need affordable housing here. Clean drinking water. What am I going to do? I'm going to prop up the corrupt government because my own self-interest is worried about my own leadership of the party. And I know if that an election gets triggered now, I'm probably ousted as leader. Okay. Why wouldn't drinking water be a local problem? There are a number of issues as to why this is still a persisting problem. The issue is that it's on native reserves, indigenous reserves, First Nations land. Don't even know what the politically correct term for it. It's on native land reserves, which are sort of autonomous in a sense, but under the federal jurisdiction under the Indian Act, and that's what it's called. It's called the Indian Act. So there are some politics involved as to who would be responsible for that. Who would be responsible for bringing infrastructure onto reserves where the reserves were specifically set up so that indigenous peoples could retain autonomy, retain independent land. But it's not complicated. It's pipes, it's wells, or it's water purification plants. I mean, the government can find literally hundreds of millions of dollars to finance foreign wars with extremely complex, expensive weapons of war. How about you, instead of financing weapons of war out in Eastern Europe, you finance wells of peace and wells of water for the indigenous people who you've promised to them since 2015. I had a interesting discussion, a Twitter back and forth with someone online. They accused me of being misinformed because under the Liberal government, they've lifted 100 some odd water boil advisories. There's only 35 left. There's only 35 communities in Canada that don't have clean drinking water. Only is not the word I would be using right there. Outrageous. It's outrageous when it's in Flint, Michigan. It's outrageous when it's on indigenous lands in Canada. 7 years and you can't fix clean drinking water? I mean, that's beyond incompetence. That's criminal. Allegedly, in my humble opinion, hashtag no defamation, criminal. But Jagmeet's their boy. Jagmeet is keeping Justin in power. He in the debate on the invocation of the Emergencies Act, in the debate where Justin Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act to violently suppress the most peaceful protest Canada has ever seen, Jagmeet Singh, in his speech, says Trudeau has failed in his response in every respect, incompetent government, but I'm going to go vote to allow them to use the nuclear weapon of legislation in Canada to suppress civil rights, to violently quell peaceful protest. They're terrible, incompetent. They've screwed up every step along the way. So what do? Let's give them more powers to screw up even more now. Jagmeet, you're to blame. Shame on you. But there can be no shame where there is no pride. And I genuinely feel you have no shame. You have no pride. You have no conscience. It is all political warfare. And what you're interested in is not what is in the best interest of Canadians. I feel a little better now. Okay, good. That accent sounds like Bob Doug McKenzie, brother. You're talking about my accent, eh? There were two super chats that I saw here. STFU, another one, FFS. Hear me out. A lot of people, not just the bad, the worst of the worst, loved children turning in their parents. Communists, Mao Zedong, fascists. It's It's what happens when the government takes over what are the fundamental pillars of a free and democratic society. The government comes in, takes over education, takes over religion, takes over family. And by takes it over, I mean destroys and rebuilds itself as the pillar. Yeah. Whether or not it was by design or by accident, shutting down schools, the government shutting down schools, the government telling people they can't celebrate religious holidays, they can't celebrate with family. And in Canada, they did it too. Get neighbors to rat out neighbors. Get everyone to hate each other so that the only entity that can govern it is your new god, the government. As for the rest of that, STFU, FFS, thank you for the super chat. Yeah. I'm just reading some of the chats here to see if I can bring up some. Oh, 540 watching on James Top. James starting to speak. They're streaming now. I have a feeling that that's going to be of particular interest to Canadians. Go watch it. It'll be there afterwards. Or go watch it now and come back to me. I'll be here afterwards, and you can watch the rerun.